I'm with the sculptor Sophie Marsham to talk about upcoming exhibition Profound Objects. But before we do so, let's talk about you. Where did you develop your passion for art?
I left school just after I was 17, and I had various art-based jobs for 4 years. I was working in Soho for Palace Film Company, and I was their bike courier. So I was delivering cans of film and cycling around delivering photographs and documents, and I was kind of immersed in that kind of Soho world. The 1980s, it was a really exciting time.
With all that going on, who are the main influences, or what were the main influences?
Well, I worked for two key people at that time. Apart from Palace, I was working for a sculptor, Jerry Judah, and I was sort of his studio slave, working with different materials. And he was doing huge sets for film and adverts and theatre at the time, and I was working with lots of different medium.
You also did a apprenticeship in America.
Yes, I worked for a goldsmith, Whitmire's Fine Jewellery in South Carolina. Did a goldsmith apprenticeship for 6 months, learning how to do stone setting and gold casting. It was a really influential time for me and really exciting time.
So you had quite a grasped start to your career. It wasn't the stereotypical went to uni, but you quite did things the backwards way, where starting working and then going to uni.
Yeah.
How did that all work out?
Well, I knew, having worked in various art-based jobs for 4 years, I knew I needed to learn to draw, and I had to go to art school to be able to do that. So I think that drawing is a really important key thing for any artist to learn. And so I worked for 4 years, and then on the back of the work that I got, it enabled me to get into art school.
So how did all this different aspects into your education and your internships and all these little bits you've done, how did that develop your style to what you do today?
Well, I was always really interested in working three-dimensionally. I was always really interested in working with different materials. And I think all those early stages of working with different things gave me the kind of skill set to then take that further.
And you've had some stories where you've gone and tried hard to get these little bits of recycled bits to add onto your pieces.
Yeah, well, I've been working with recycled and reclaimed objects for more than 20 years now, and it's the sort of cornerstone of my work. And back in the day, we used to find all sorts of pieces in skips and different things.
Yeah, and you did quite a lot of work with Batsy.
Yeah, I worked in a forge there for 11 years, as a collaboration with other people.
Yeah, so how did that work?
It was just great. When I was at art school, even though I was doing sculpture and recycled stuff, I couldn't weld, so I needed to learn to weld. So I joined the studio in Battersea. There was a slot available, and we worked collaboratively with we all worked independently, but we all worked together. It was like teamwork, and we could all share clients, and we could share machinery and tools, and it was a really good time, and I learned all my welding skills there.
You've had quite a few stories where you had to go and get that material that needed welding.
Yeah, I did. One of the first pieces I remember doing, there was an old spring mattress down the alleyway of the studio, and it was like covered. It still had all the cotton pieces hanging off the springs, and it was kind of dripping and rusty. And I dragged it into the studio and bent it and made it into a sheep, and we just welded a head and some feet. And I kind of became known for making sheep, and I ended up making loads of sheep after that. I got different commissions to doing different sheep pieces.
Since then, you've gone on to do loads of commissions. But do you remember the very first one that you were commissioned to do?
Yeah, when I was just 3 months out of art school, and I got commissioned to make 5 pieces for Pret-a-Manger in Oxford Street. Bearing in mind this was 20 years ago, when it was literally the first Pret that was in London. And it was their flagship store, and it was at the Tottenham Court Road end of Oxford Street, and I made a giant tuna fish and a huge 12-foot chicken and a big coffee pot. And where it was, just off Charlotte Street, was surrounded by ad agencies and design companies, and literally everyone bought their coffee there, so everyone saw my pieces, which was really lucky for me, because I was kind of new to the game.
It sounded like it was an amazing opportunity. I mean, as a student or in your early stages of sculpting, is there a piece that you're especially fond of that you can recall?
Yeah, I don't have actually that many pieces left from my college days, but I do have quite an interesting large fish wall-mounted piece that's in a box frame, and even the box frame was made from an old drawer that I found in a skip. And the scales of the fish are butcher's apron, and they were given to me by my local butcher in Fulham, which was great. And he really liked the piece, and then he ended up commissioning me to make another fish for him out of Butcher's Apron. And it was great, and he was really happy with the piece, and he ended up paying me in meat, which was really nice. It was like early bartering, which was great.
I mean, just looking at that piece alone, you had the drawer, you had the apron.
Everything was found.
Yeah. And how do you look at an object and then think, I can make a sculpture out of that, or that'd be very interesting, I could do this and that? How does your thought process work?
I think because I've been doing it for so long, I always see like the quirkiness in something. It'll just be like literally turning something upside down. It immediately becomes a face or a pair of feet or a head. I see the weirdest things in the simplest of things. And I think it's just because I've been doing it for so long.
You're saying that when you see things, you think about the story behind it as well. So it's not
Yeah.
just you don't just see, say, a pen, you see more.
I love working with old objects that have been kind of discarded and try and give them a new lease of life. And I love working with stuff that has a history. And I'm often thinking about the history of a particular piece that I'm working on, and where it's been before and what's been its life before I kind of gave it a new life, if you like.
You seem to have quite a very unique style. Is there any artist or anything that's actually been an influence?
There's not a particular artist who works with recycled and reclaimed objects, but I'm definitely much more influenced by photography and sculpture. And we're in such a vibrant, incredible city where there's so much available to see. I go and see galleries and exhibitions all the time. There's 300 art galleries in London, which is amazing. And London gives so much, even in the street. There's always great art and there's always so much to see. That influences me more than one particular artist.
And anyone who's familiar with work, that you work from the very minute objects to doing things on grand scale, big commissions.
Yeah.
How do you approach that difference when it comes to the design and the conception stage?
Well, I love varying the scale. So I love working with tiny handheld stuff and then huge scale pieces as well. And I think every job is completely different because it's all site specific. So that every job has its own feeling, its own space. And so I try to think about the material within that space.
If you could, it's a very hard question for any artist or sculptor, if you could choose two objects that you worked on that you're especially fond of, just two, what would they be?
Okay. Most of the work I do is commissioned, so it's gone once it's gone, and I don't have that kind of longing to have it back. But there are two pieces I made for an airline finance company years ago, which was a sun and moon for their boardroom, and it was made out of titanium scrap. Because it was an airline finance company, they wanted me to work with airline scrap. And I found two incredible titanium circles. One was almost a complete circle, which was the sun, and the other was like a moon-shaped piece, and they were very different colours. And I could have sold them again and again and again, and I would love to have those pieces back, but nothing else particularly.
So now to talk about your latest project, Profound Objects.
Yes.
Tell us the key theme behind that.
The Profound Objects is my new exhibition at the Coningsby Gallery. I haven't had a show there for 15 years, so it's quite an exciting and daunting thing for me, but also incredibly exciting to be given the opportunity. And the themes behind the show, it's about life and death and loss and the precariousness of life. And there's this feeling, I'm very influenced by nature and with my work as well. People who know my work know that I work with trees and flowers and animals and so on. And I'm often my most moved when I'm out and about. And it could be just even like cloud formations or sun setting or the weird branches of a tree or blossom. And it can completely change your mood and change how you feel. And I think if you're in a very sad space, it's really nature that can kind of give you that escape.
If I was visiting the exhibition, what can I expect?
Well, I'm hoping it will be an interesting show and a very kind of accessible show. There will be work that's interactive. It will be definitely accessible for children. My work is about getting art out of the gallery and into the public arena. And I don't want it to be, please don't touch the art. Yeah. I think it's about more of a kind of interaction with the art. And I hope it will be interesting and humorous and fun.
Yeah, and you have a big thing for making art humorous.
Yeah, I think humour is a really important emotion, actually, and I think sometimes art takes itself a little too seriously, and I think humour is a really important thing, and I think if your work can be humorous, then I think it's all the better.
So if we wanted to attend that exhibition, when is it?
It's at the Coningsby Gallery, which is 30 Tottenham Street, just off Charlotte Street in the West End, and it's going to be the last 2 weeks of June this year.
And where can we find more information?
Well, it'll be all over social media. I've got a Sophie Marsham Facebook page, also at Sophie Marsham on Twitter, or you can follow my work at sophiemarsham.com.
Thank you.
Welcome.